Greetings, Starfighters. It's about a week later than I planned to, but I am finally filming the first episode of Season 4 of Shameless Cashgrab. And if you remember the end of the last season wrap-up episode, you know that we are doing direct-to-DVD 2010s action movies, mostly starring actors past their prime and some character actors who are always working, and who are usually good in what they do, even if the rest of the movie sucks. Speaking of sucking, I have a few hopes for our first movie this season, Operation Endgame. No relation to Avengers Endgame, of course, and also the poster makes it look like it's a knockoff of a movie called Smokin' Aces that I really liked. And just to give you some idea how good Smokin' Aces is, Jeremy Piven is in it, and I still liked it. So, yeah, hopefully Operation Endgame will, at least remind me of how much I liked Smokin' Aces. That'll be a plus, wouldn't it?
Oh, God, it's been a month and my voice is still nasally. It's fucking cold. Oh, shit, I'm recording. Okay, so, I have now watched Operation Endgame from 2010. Plot summary courtesy of Rotten Tomatoes. No, I won't give you the movie's RT score, because that doesn't actually mean anything. The website's just an aggregator. Anyway, somewhere beneath Washington, D.C., an intense rivalry is heating up between two opposing teams of government assassins. The hired killers in the organization take their names from tarot cards. The Fool is the latest recruit. Reporting for his first day on the job, the Fool is shocked to find that his boss is dead and the office is on lockdown. To make matters worse, the building has been rigged with explosives and it's going to blow soon. Now, in order to get out alive, the Fool will have to root out the killer in his midst and make a quick escape before his co-workers catch him in their crosshairs. Okay, so, before we get into the movie proper, I need to, well, apologize is probably the wrong word, but what I said at the end of the video portion of this episode is off base. See, I'd forgotten one of the old rules of filmmaking. Never remind your audience of a good movie during a bad movie. Or at the very least, never remind an audience of a better movie than yours. So if Operation Endgame had in fact reminded me at any point of Smokin' Aces, that would not have been a plus as I had implied earlier. My bad. Thankfully, what similarities there are between the two films are largely superficial. Both films involve competing assassins, multiple factions in Smokin' Aces, but only two in this movie, and both films have large casts made up of both established and up-and-coming actors. Oh, and there's lots of violence. But apart from those three things... Anyway, the opening of the movie is something that, in theory, could have worked for a dramatic entry. Overlapping audio from every president, except Reagan and Carter for some reason, from JFK up to George W. Bush, while quiet, ominous music plays. Though considering the poster for the movie prominently features multiple actors known for comedies, and a pun in the tagline, that's probably setting the bar a little high. By the way, this movie probably has the largest cast of named and relevant characters of any movie I've covered on this show, so I'm not even going to try and remember everybody's name. Especially since most of them don't use real names anyway. They use their tarot name throughout. I'm getting sidetracked. So after the title sequence, we are introduced to three characters, one of whom is played by Rob Corddry of The Daily Show. In an unnecessarily CGI'd elevator, we get an info dump about the organization these three work for called The Factory, unofficial covert operatives who operate under codenames derived from tarot cards, as mentioned in the plot summary. We learn that, thanks to LBJ, the Factory is split into two teams, Alpha and Omega, who are constantly, and I am not making this up, competing with each other. Apparently, this is supposed to be some sort of balance of power thing, because if one group goes too far, whole countries could end up getting wiped out by the Factory's actions. At least I think that's what's going on. This info dump goes by pretty fast, and is interrupted seemingly at random by computer screens. At least this movie comes with closed captioning, unlike all the Mill Creek sets, or honestly, I doubt I'd have picked up that much. The biggest problem I have with the expository sequence, though, it tries way too hard to be funny. I get it. You have a guy from The Daily Show in your movie. You want him to try and be like he is on The Daily Show, only getting to swear this time. Fine. But an info dump sequence is not where you do this. I'm sorry, but unless your name is either Douglas Adams or Sir Terry Pratchett, making your info dump funny is probably not going to work. The part after it is kind of funny, though probably not as much as intended. In this sequence, Corddry's character goes off on a rant at the security camera because of a delay getting in to see the overseer of the factory called the Devil, referencing the tarot, not because... While this is going on, two security personnel laugh at him from their control booth, or whatever it's called. They can see and hear him, but he can't see and hear them. That got a chuckle out of me, at least, though, like I said, I feel like they were going for more than a chuckle there. After this, we meet Ving Rhames and Bob Odenkirk's characters, all part of Omega Team, like Rob Corddry and the two other characters we met at the start. One of them was played by Maggie Q, but I didn't actually remember her name until after the movie was over. But in my defense, a lot of these character actresses from the mid-2000s kind of look alike to me. Sorry. We meet part of Alpha Team after this, but the only one of them I recognize, at least up to this point, is Adam Scott. Maybe best known for Parks and Recreation, but I know him mainly as the Defiant helmsman in Star Trek First Contact. Anyway, we're back at exposition now. Turns out Corddry's rant was just a break. The exposition has, so far, taken up more than half of the almost 10 minutes the movie has run so far, including credits, and the movie only has an 82-minute runtime, including end credits. That does not bode well for the pacing of this thing, does it? Next up, we meet the character name-dropped earlier, Devil, played by Jeffrey Tambor. Considering why he was fired from Transparent and how he treated Jessica Walter, that name is ironically appropriate for him. We also meet the character named Empress, played by Ellen Barkin. One scene and she is already in the running for my favorite character of this movie. So, stuff happens. A lot of stuff, actually. This movie has a lot going on in a short amount of time, so I think I'll include the link to the very detailed plot rundown on Wikipedia in the show notes, and just stick to the major stuff here. I want to see if I can keep every episode this season under 20 minutes. I'm thinking that might help with my view count. Okay, so next major plot, Devil's dead. No problem here. I mean, the character wasn't so nice either, so that's not just me. Anyway, he's seemingly killed by Zach Galifianakis, though that's not explicitly shown to us, and he's also not in this movie as much as the poster would imply. When this happens, a code in the building called Endgame, where the movie gets its title from, is activated, and the two teams are now trapped in the underground complex where the factory operates out of. This would be the bombs mentioned in the summary, specifically napalm. So now the plot is in full swing, finally. Of course, if I actually gave a shit about any of these characters, that might lead to some tension, but, who wants tension in an action movie? Cough. Seriously, the way the movie has gone out of its way to make every character, except the guy who goes by the Fool, look like an asshole, you'd think this was a bad post-2000 slasher movie, rather than an action comedy. The two teams decide to pair up to try to find the rumored secret exits that Devil supposedly knew about, hence why the bombs to clear the place are on a timer, even though the place is locked down. 1 Alpha and 1 Omega per team. Shortly after this, we get a reveal that, credit where credit is due, is truly clever, and deserved a much better movie to be in. Up to this point, the movie has been spending a decent chunk of time reminding us that it's taking place during President Obama's first inauguration. Why? Well, it turns out the Devil's killer timed their actions so that when the Secret Service codes changed at noon, the facility operators would not have the ability to reset the security system and turn off Endgame. I think I described that properly. Anyway, that was a good twist. I'm not gonna lie. This movie loses me again, though. It lost me the first time during the extended exposition sequence, when it introduced the gimmick of the two security camera watchers I mentioned earlier reacting to the deaths inside the factory, which start when Ellen Barkin offs Bob Odenkirk. I'm sure it was supposed to be funny in a kind of morbid way, And hey, I won't judge. Maybe to some people it was, but I think that it kind of doesn't help with the pacing. Speaking of, we aren't even halfway through the movie when Ving Rhames gets offed. Is it absolutely necessary to kill off all the actors I actually recognize first? Who will I have left to root for? Oh, who am I kidding? Most of these people are dickheads. I'm not rooting for anybody. Oh, skipping ahead a little bit here. I didn't actually put this in the script. I only just remembered this. This is going to sound like a lie, but I swear to you, by the end of the movie, there is literally only one character left alive whose actor I recognize from other films. One. Yeah, just, wow. Oh, wow, I realized I just skipped over a bunch of stuff. Okay. A bit later in the movie, during a fight scene between Rob Corddry and Adam Scott, Scott's character claims that Temperance, the ex-girlfriend of the Fool from the info dump scene, I should have mentioned that the Fool found out that his ex-girlfriend was working for the factory and that she took her tarot and that she goes by the name Temperance, that Temperance killed Devil, and that it was the result of a failed mission that had taken place before the start of the film. Not sure if this is true or not yet at this point, as the movie has already made it clear that frankly none of these people are particularly trustworthy, though Corddry, despite his attitude, doesn't actually kill Adam Scott when he wins, instead leaving him injured after stabbing him in the knee with a pen. The fight scene itself isn't too bad on the choreography front. I've seen better, but I've seen worse too. So, the lady played by Maggie Q dies, the Black Republican guy dies, the Southern lady who killed Ving Rhames dies. Turns out Temperance maybe did kill Devil, but she hesitates to kill Fool, so obviously she's still into him, despite her occasionally violent protests to the contrary. I mean, she's the one who kills a Southern lady, part of her own team, to save Fool, who is part of Omega, so it's not exactly subtle. Throughout all of this, Zach Galifianakis has been appearing here and there, being cryptic, not saying anything. I hope that pays off. More stuff happens, more cutaways to Obama's inauguration speech, more jokes that don't quite land, more gratuitous swearing, and this is me saying it's gratuitous, so that tells you something. And we learn the reason the Fool was hired was that he was apparently an outside hire for the failed mission before the movie started, and was brought in so that he would be killed along with the rest of Alpha Team. Not gonna lie, the reveal kinda works, but I think it needed better setup than just a scar on his chest and one of the security guys wondering why the factory hired a guy with dual citizenship for the first time ever, but that's just me. Anyway, Rob Corddry is not too happy about this and tries to kill Fool, only to be offed right the fuck out of nowhere by Zach Galifianakis. We are down to our last 3 or 4 actors I actually recognize at this point. And one of the people we're supposed to, at least in theory, root for to escape just randomly throws out an anti-gay slur. Way to kill the mood, movie. So, after some more fighting and Zach Galifianakis getting shot in the junk after probably the worst delivered line in the movie, Fool and Temperance escape, the factory is destroyed by bad CGI fire, and we learn that apparently the Devil set up this whole thing himself in order to expose the factory's clandestine operations to the incoming Obama administration. I think it's a little confusing. Oh, and, Fool killed Temperance in the elevator off screen before killing a random guy in a bathroom to take his coat? What? Okay, movie, you have used up your allotment of good twists. Now this is just getting stupid. Honestly, showing them kissing as they escape, then Temperance's own weapon buried in her skull next time we see her, after she went to all that trouble to save Fool, that's just a real dick move. This is supposed to be, it turns out, our ostensible hero of the movie, who was brought in explicitly to expose brutal crimes of the U.S. government. And then, he just kills his girlfriend and then kills a civilian because the civilian was in the bathroom where the escape elevator came out. And yeah, that's just mean. And by the way, we never did find out what Zach Galifianakis' character's deal was. Random thoughts I had during the movie. Darko Pictures is one of the production companies attached to this movie. I think this is the first time I've seen that logo on a movie not directed by Richard Kelly. Though it turns out he was a producer on it, so that explains it. As I alluded to earlier, the swearing in this movie is just weird. Now, you know me. You know I cuss a lot on this show. But coming out of this movie, it sounds like the script was written by someone who was never allowed to swear until they turned 21 and are now trying to make up for lost time. The movie was more than a quarter of the way through when I finally recognized the actress playing Temperance. She was Rain on Supergirl during this show's hit-or-miss third season. Speaking of, she's the one who had the, what I consider, worst delivered line in the movie. It's when, right before she shoots out Zach Galifianakis, she's something about lipstick. She had a single shot gun disguised as a lipstick thing. And, Galifianakis asks her what color the lipstick is, and she says, "The color of your dick after I put a bullet in it." It's a dumb line, and it was delivered with just the most undeserved amount of gravitas. It's like, think of just like, okay, I've not seen every Bond movie, so I'm not equipped to say what the worst Bond one-liner is. So if any of you out there know, or at least have a personal preference for what the worst Bond one-liner is, it's like that, only probably worse. The closing credits music is not very good. There's an alternate opening and ending on the DVD. In short, the alt opening is stupid and also was apparently made when the movie was going to be called Rogues Gallery. And the alternate ending is really just the actual end of the movie, minus the last 2 deaths and a little less of Fool's Walk to the Cab. That's it. Final verdict. And a few chuckles aside, this movie's ultimate failing is that it tries to do too much in too short a window of time. The movie needed to either lose several characters or be about 15 minutes to maybe a half hour longer. Both would have been overdoing it, but just one could have saved it, I think. Honestly, I can see places where this could have been a good movie. Sadly, it just bit off more than it could chew. Not sure I'd recommend this to anyone who wasn't a fan of one or more of the actors involved. Though if you are a fan of one or more of the actors involved, every single one of them has been in far worse. At the end of the day, I guess I give this movie a stamp of, eh. I might have been willing to rate it higher than eh, but that last sequence, as I said, was just too mean. It would have been less cruel of Fool. Oh, God, I didn't even intend for that to rhyme. For him to just close the elevator door while Temperance was killing Ellen Barkin's character, that would have been a, well, what the fuck moment, but then when, he steps out of the elevator, he wouldn't have to kill the guy who was a potential witness. And then we could have gotten the reveal that, he was part of a plot to expose the factory and blah, blah, blah. Anywho, that is Episode 1 of Season 4 out of the way. Next up is a movie called Streets of Blood, starring Val Kilmer, Sharon Stone, and Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. And yeah, okay, so this DVD doesn't have plot summaries on the back like all the Mill Creek sets do, but based on the tagline and the poster, it's safe to say that the movie takes place in New Orleans.